All right, everybody. Thanks for joining us today. This is the second cybersecurity related webinar that we've done with Katie Wallace. She's our Channel Success Manager with ID Agent and Kaseya. Katie and their team is a great help to IT service companies like ours. They help us stay up to date with the different cyber threats that are out there and the ways that the bad guys try to trick our clients into doing things that they shouldn't. And so Katie has a presentation for us this morning. We're excited to have her on. Katie, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, absolutely. No, thank you for having me here this morning. And before I get things kicked off, it's quite fitting. October is Cybersecurity Awareness Month, so we're definitely here to discuss everything that we need to be aware of, especially when surfing the web. So with that being said, today we're going to focus on the changes of our security landscape. Look at the different ways that our information is exposed. And in all honesty, with changes to our work environment, we've seen an increase in cyber criminals trying to profit from our information. Cybercrime, it's truly run like a business where these cyber criminals, unfortunately, are making money off of our data and any numbers associated with it. The dark web, it's unfortunately a huge marketplace for stolen data and personal information after a data breach or a hacking incident. Personal or business information is often bought and sold on the dark web by, again, these cyber criminals or identity thieves looking to make money off of our good name, business data, and any other numbers associated with us. The dark web actually was initially created by the U.S. Department of Defense for whistleblower situations, allowing sources to remain anonymous. And the dark web today is often used by a lot of folks in repressed countries looking for freedom of speech. Now, you might just say, well, if the dark web is also a hotbed for criminals, why not get rid of it? Because there are some legitimate sources to the dark web, we would never want to remove this space from the internet, especially, like I said, the U.S. military is still using it today. But unfortunately, whether you watch your local or national news, you've likely heard a story that's mentioned phishing attacks, data breaches, or even ransomware. Unfortunately, again, these opportunist crooks are even exploiting the coronavirus as part of their attempts to gain access to our information. Outside of COVID-19 related attacks, Capital One, Equifax, Facebook, these are just a few names of companies that we've heard about recently for going through breaches in the mainstream media. Remember a few years back hearing about the WannaCry virus targeting computers running on the Microsoft Windows operating system? What was happening with the WannaCry virus, it was a virus that was going around, and what cyber criminals were doing were locking you out of your computer and all the data, and they were demanding Bitcoin as a currency to get your data back. Many attacks don't have to be as notorious as the WannaCry virus to take a company down. Whether it's a phishing attack, a data breach, a hacking incident, or even a bout of ransomware, there's something that all of these breaches and phishing attacks that they have in common. Today it's the human element. Your employees are your number one risk. You can have the best firewall in place, but all it takes for your company to fall victim to a ransomware attack is an employee sharing their credentials in a phishing email. Or maybe your employee clicks on a bad link on the internet, and in just one click, your entire network can be affected. To really paint this picture for you, here are some examples of third-party applications that we all use in our everyday job function, no matter what vertical we work in, no matter what our role is at the organization. Given how many platforms businesses use on an everyday basis, you don't have to connect too many dots to realize you've got information that cyber criminals want and can sell on the dark web. Again, in our everyday roles, we all have access to an Office 365 account. We potentially have access to a customer record system where we house our customer data. Maybe we're in HR or payroll, so we log into those systems. But again, think about all the data that lives behind these sites. Customer records, again, payroll, financial information. Keep in mind what connects us to all of these websites, and that's our email address and passwords. Unfortunately, when cyber criminals access your email and passwords, they don't just steal your information. They can use your email account to distribute malware or launch phishing attacks against your targets or your contacts. Also, unfortunately, when these fraudsters get a hold of our email addresses and passwords, they can use an automated process, or they start firing endless variations of email addresses and password combinations on multiple websites. They do this just because cyber criminals are aware of how many folks reuse passwords amongst logins, whether those logins are for personal applications or business applications. Again, because people are recycling and reusing passwords, cyber criminals know that by going through this automated process, it's likely possible that they can unlock other accounts of yours. And what ends up happening is a lot of the times cyber criminals are able to back channel their way through our accounts, meaning somebody can use your stolen login for, let's say, your coffee loyalty program. And if you reuse that same password to log in to maybe Amazon or your Office 365 account, or potentially even something like Dropbox, that cyber criminal now has access to both of those systems and all the data that lives behind them. As we move forward in the presentation, I want to talk about the concept of zero trust. Because companies have so much data across so many different accounts now, with those logins being how we access, companies have been moving towards adopting the zero trust model. Traditionally, I think businesses think of data security almost like a castle and a moat concept, where, in castle and moat security, we trust everybody that works at our company. So we trust them, we give them access to all of our data, or in this scenario, we give everybody the keys to our castle. We place a moat or a firewall around our castle or data, and we think we're good. The problem with this approach is that once an attacker or a cyber criminal gains access to your castle or network, the cyber criminal now has free reign over all of your company's most sensitive data because you gave everybody at your organization access. For this reason, we see the castle and moat concept fail when it comes to data security. Also, like I previously mentioned, companies no longer have their data in just one place. Today, information is often spread across multiple vendors, applications, and different websites, what makes it more difficult to have a single security control in place for an entire network. So when we talk about the concept of zero trust, it means that nobody is trusted by default from inside or outside your network, or in this scenario, your moat, and that verification is required to everybody to access the network. Companies do this in the scenario that they are going to be breached. That way, if a cyber criminal does access your data, they only get their hands on a small subset of it versus getting their hands on your entire company's worth of data. This can minimize any sort of downtime or repercussions that a data breach or ransomware attack can have on your organization. The reason, that we're seeing a lot of companies moving towards the zero trust model here is because compliance. No matter the industry or the size of your company, all businesses, must adhere to certain laws or regulations as part of operations. We should be no stranger to data privacy laws, as since of 1996, doctors' offices have needed to be compliant with our health records by abiding by HIPAA regulations. Just like medical offices, businesses need to be aware of any compliance laws they face. The state of New York just rolled out the New York Shield Act and joins many states like California and Massachusetts in having government mandated regulations surrounding how its residents are handled, data is handled. Being negligent to these regulations can impose even larger fines in the scenario that your company falls victim to a ransomware or data breach attack. Also, it is rumored that the United States is looking to rolling out their own privacy law, similar to what the UK rolled out with GDPR. Something like that would come into play here in the next few years. As we move through the presentation, I want to look at actual screenshots from this space that we call the dark web. We mentioned about how our data winds up here, but what is this? How does this part of the internet actually operate? Well, here's an actual screenshot that our team of analysts have shared with me from the dark web. This particular website is selling credit card or debit card information, and I will honestly say this is one of the most popular websites on the dark web. This website sells information from anywhere between $5 to $110. So I hate to say it, it's fairly affordable if you wanted to go on here and buy any info. This is a full package purchase, meaning for the fraudsters, when you would buy a credit card from this website, You would include the stolen name, even the social security number, birth date, or any account numbers that you would really need to use the card effectively. This particular site will even discreetly mail you the physical card in the mail, so your neighbors have no idea what you're up to and you can use it in stores. Particularly with a site like this on the dark web, as you can see in the red box up here, thank you for giving us another chance to provide you with the best credit cards. With that being said, with these websites, you can even leave reviews for them. Like somebody would go on your website and leave a Google review. Today, this is very fitting, with the election coming up here in the next few weeks. Our voter data is much a target of these malicious hackers and breaches that are happening on the dark web. Again, credit card data is equally as susceptible as our voter data, but voter data can be exposed by either malicious attacks or accidental leaks, poorly configured security settings, or physical theft of hardware. Regardless of the point of exposure, compromised voter data usually includes sensitive information such as, your first name, last name, address. It could even include, your racial demographic, voter registration profile, whether you're on the do not call list. So there's truly a lot of information that cyber criminals can get their hands on through our voter information. Actually, in 2017, cybersecurity researchers at a firm identified a misconfigured data breach that contained the personal details of just close to 2 million US voters. So again, with this year being a lot of the election being different, if you get a text message, which a lot of us are currently getting text messages about voting, make sure you don't click on any of those links, because those could honestly be cyber attacks waiting to happen. As we move forward in the presentation, in this particular screenshot, I want to talk about this website in particular. This website is selling the largest known data dump on the dark web for just $10. This collection of data includes the records of over 2.7 billion people. So consider, the largest data dump, close to 3 billion people's information on it, and it's being sold on the dark web for just $10. The particular website that was selling this data dump, it's called AlphaBay. This was a popular website on the dark web, and in fact, it's run very similar to eBay. Authorities say the site trafficked not only drugs, fake and stolen IDs, computer hacking tools, firearms, and other counterfeit goods. This website also facilitated services such as money laundering. So as you can see here, all illicit and very illegal activities happening within this website on the dark web. This particular company, AlphaBay, they went as far as to hire scam watchers to monitor and put a stop to scams on an already illegal website. AlphaBay also employed a public relations manager responsible for outreach to its users. The site also employed moderators to dissolve any payment and refund disputes when necessary. So again, truly, these websites are run like businesses on the dark web. Overall, AlphaBay took a 2% to a 4% commission on all the deals made on their website. That's how the website's owner made its money. And the cyber criminal behind this particular website, Alexander, had an assumed fortune of just under $23 million when the website was shut down. I also find that this slide is very fitting given the time of year that we're in. Discounts are no longer for the holiday season. However, discounts in the holiday season, we're coming right up on that time of year. I'm going to reference back into earlier 2020. Countless legitimate websites were offering, a discount during the start of the coronavirus pandemic just to help keep their businesses afloat. Businesses on the dark web turned to offering the same discounts. A hacking group named SS Hacker at the start of the coronavirus was offering a 15% discount on their services with the promotional code COVID-19. Another site was offering customer service around the clock as a way to help support their customers during this time. Another website on the dark web added, due to the current situation in the world, we're providing a 20% discount again on all of our services with another promotional code until the end of April. Again, these tactics are also used by legitimate businesses, but again, the cyber criminals are using these same tactics to attract new buyers to their space on the dark web. Just to show you how lucrative of a business cybercrime is, I wanted to share this job posting. Modern cyber attacks, such as phishing, can be highly profitable for cyber criminals. The cost of launching a phishing attack is low, and a single successful cyber attack can yield thousands or even millions of dollars in revenue for the cyber criminal from selling your information. Think back, if the largest known data dump was being sold for $10 on the dark web, imagine how many folks had to buy that list for this to be worth $1 million to a cyber criminal. Having a proven and predicted business model has enabled cyber criminals to scale and even attract investors looking to make money in this space. In a market where money can be made, you can find a pool of talented individuals. This particular job ad that we're looking for is for a software designer on the dark web. This position has a starting salary of $765,000, and over the course of 2 years, this individual is slated to make over just $1 million if they stick in this current role. Just to wrap up the portion in talking about the dark web before we move into ransomware and phishing attacks, I mentioned earlier about hearing about cyber attacks in the mainstream media. And if you've kept up to date with things, I'm sure you've heard about Zoom bombings. Since the start of COVID-19 pandemic, this has forced many companies to switch to working remote and using Zoom, Teams, and other video conferencing services. While Zoom and Teams have enjoyed the surge in popularity, unfortunately, Zoom users have become a target for cyber criminals. There are several Zoom accounts that are currently either on sale or being given away on hacker forums on the dark web. While Zoom themselves never went through a data breach, how these cyber criminals are getting their hands on Zoom rooms, it's easier than you think. So around the start of COVID, we all set up virtual happy hours, whether they were with our colleagues or friends. However, when we were setting up virtual happy hours, a lot of folks started sharing their Zoom rooms in public forums. I say a public forum to me would be something like Facebook. A public forum could also be LinkedIn. And unfortunately, what cyber criminals were doing is they were able to get people's Zoom room links off these public forums. And again, because cyber criminals will sell anything on the dark web to make a good money, that's how those links wound up on the dark web, and that's how these uninvited guests wound up in our Zoom meetings. So think twice before sharing your Zoom link or even your Teams link in a public forum. As we switch gears here, it's not just your information that's for sale on the dark web. Unfortunately, you can buy hacking tools as well. Ransomware is a form of malware where cyber criminals attack your systems with a malicious code. Think back to that WannaCry virus. Their intent is to lock you out of your system and encrypt your most important and sensitive data. Ransomware as a service borrows the software as a service model. However, this subscription model, again, it's based off of malicious intent. With the ransomware as a service model, cyber criminals are able to sell the tools on the dark web to launch your own ransomware as a service attack. Now, certainly, we highly do not recommend this as these attacks are highly illegal. However, the undoubtable ability to make these attacks quicker and easier to deploy has really contributed greatly in the exponential growth of ransomware attacks. The biggest danger of ransomware attacks is, again, that it's made it just about possible for anybody to become a cyber criminal. This vicious model is so enticing to some cyber criminals that you can even see the ransomware as a service provider advertisements on the dark web. There are numerous reasons why cyber criminals are attracted to this franchise-like deployment. First and foremost, it enables the ransomware authors to earn quick money. So these cyber criminals are making double the money off these ransomware as a service models. As for the creators of the folks who are writing this code, it decreases the need for them to write multiple emails. And again, somebody can just simply rent out this malicious model and deploy ransomware as a service to any one of their victims. Unfortunately, with ransomware as a service being sold on the dark web, phishing attacks have also been made easy for cyber criminals to exploit. Again, I obviously don't recommend that somebody uses this information to become a cyber criminal, as these attacks are highly illegal. But phishing attacks, it's again being made easy by these cyber criminals on the dark web. If you go on the dark web, you can buy a phishing kit, and that includes the content to send out to the list of your prospects. Now, Facebook, as we're looking here, here's a side-by-side comparison of an actual screenshot from Facebook itself and a website, a phishing website that a cyber criminal has created to look like Facebook. And this is what somebody would be buying on the dark web and one of those phishing services. As you can see here, the biggest difference that can be easily overlooked is just the URL in which these kits are coming from. As we look here in this next example, this particular phishing kit was meant to look like it's mimicking eBay. And again, the biggest difference would be the URL that the landing page is being sent from. Again, here's another example of a phishing kit. This one is meant to look like it's from USAA. And as you can really see, cyber criminals go the extra mile into making sure that they have the right ads located at the bottoms of the pages, in the real page and in the fake page. All of these links would work as well. Again, phishing is an attempt to acquire personal information such as usernames, passwords, or even financial information via impersonation or spoofing. Phishing attacks have been on the rise for many years. As of March 28th of this year, the number of cyber attacks related to the coronavirus grew from just a few hundred a day to over 5,000 in one day alone. Cyber attacks continued to rise to the point where on April 6th of this year, the FBI released their first official statement surrounding phishing attacks. Overall, 71% of security professionals have reported an increase in threats since the overall outbreak of COVID-19. Now, keep in mind, since April, the FBI has released several statements about the increase in phishing attacks due to COVID-19. Here is an actual screenshot of a phishing email that was going around related to the COVID-19 attacks. Later on in the presentation, I'm going to share some hygiene tips on how to spot these emails. But as a fun fact, Microsoft remains the #1 spoofed brand in phishing attacks outside of the COVID-19 outbreak. Phishing attacks just aren't for your email anymore. Unfortunately, phishing attacks are hitting us through text messages now. And phishing attacks through text messages aren't as far off as the misleading emails. SMS attacks are sent by cyber criminals to obtain our information. The goal is to trick you into believing that the message has arrived from a trusted person or organization. Then the SMS text is convincing you to take action or to disclose information such as your usernames, passwords, bank account, login credentials, or any other information. I actually got a text message myself a few months back from an 800 number asking me for my Amazon password reset code that was just sent from my email for verification. Now, this text message came to me on a Saturday afternoon as I was running around doing my grocery shopping and getting my errands ran for the day. Now, it took me a second. I saw the text message and I thought to myself, I'm just going to ignore it because I'm not trying to reset my Amazon password code right now. I knew it was somebody malicious trying to get into my account. However, it dawned on me for a second that a company like Amazon would never send me a text message asking for a verification code. This again was in fact a cyber criminal trying to reset my Amazon password. They needed the verification code that was sent to my email address, so they sent a text message appearing to be Amazon asking for that code. I'm glad I didn't share that in that moment. And this just goes to show, think about your employees. Think about how busy they are in their everyday job function. Somebody receives something like a phishing email that contains a malicious code or an attachment, and in a split second, somebody accidentally clicks on that link or opens the attachment. And then unfortunately, that's all it takes for your company to fall victim to a ransomware attack or have your information breached. With phishing attacks and not just via email and SMS becoming so common, I wanted to share these tips with you. The CDC recommends that you take at least 20 seconds to wash your hands to avoid germs. And we recommend that you take at least 20 seconds to review any suspicious emails and texts that you receive. Legitimate companies usually will call you by your name. Phishing emails or text messages usually have generic salutations like "Dear valued member" or "Dear account holder." If a company you deal with requires information about your account, the email would call you directly by name and would probably have a direct person or contact for you to reach out to that person within the email. Something else to spot, legitimate companies don't request sensitive information via email. Like I said, if somebody is reaching out to you and they need information, they usually has contact information for you to reach out. If you receive an unsolicited email from an institution or a business that provides you a link or an attachment that asks you to provide sensitive information, it's a scam. Please do not click on those links even or open those attachments, again, as they can contain a malicious code. One of the biggest differentiators, I would say, is legit companies have email domains and they won't be using free accounts like Gmail or Yahoo. Legit companies also don't send unsolicited attachments. And again, unsolicited emails that contain attachment reek of hackers. Typically, authentic institutions don't randomly send you emails with attachments, but instead direct you to download documents or files within their own website. So again, please, during this time, especially with the holiday season coming up, being one of our most virtual years, please take those 20 seconds to review any emails just to make sure that you don't fall victim to a breach or a ransomware attack. Outside of just phishing emails and SMS texts that we need to be looking out for, we want to talk about protecting our employees during this time. 2020 has brought its fair share of challenges to all businesses, and major events like the coronavirus pandemic create new opportunities for cyber criminals to exploit. But smart defense doesn't let them. These tips can help keep your system and your data safer, especially during these uncertain times as we move into the holiday season. First and foremost, let's talk about changing our passwords regularly. I know this can be a hassle, but think about all the logins and all the data that you have living behind them. I know there are folks on today's call that reuse passwords. I was guilty of that myself, but again, remind yourself the hassle that it would take to go in and deal with a data breach. So when it comes to changing your password regularly, pick complex passwords, use favorite songs, phrases, stuff along those lines to help it make it easier on yourself to remember. Monitor your company's domains for alerts that your information is being sold on the dark web. Again, with our business's information being strewn across multiple vendors, websites, and applications, the least that we can do is monitor our own company's credentials to make sure if we do have signs of exposed information on the dark web, that we can remediate it right away. Try to use a VPN connection while working, again, just to remain secure. The biggest tip, again, that I want to remind somebody is update your software regularly. Cyber criminals look for unpatched computers to exploit. Make sure if you get the notification that your Microsoft systems needs updated, that you update it within a few days, again, just so you don't fall victim to a data breach or a ransomware attack. And then the last tip that I want to remind you during this time is partner with a trusted security vendor. Have somebody come in, talk to you about how you guys are managing your data. Talk about your IT infrastructure. With this year bringing so many complex changes to businesses, we need to have updated work from home policies. We need to have updated infrastructure to make sure that we can all stay connected in the scenario that 2021 doesn't bring us back into the office. Now, with all this being said, I want to turn things back over and let our friends at Straight Edge Technology take it from here.
Sure. Thanks, Katie. I appreciate it. And, some of those screenshots that you've shown are things that we don't often get to share with our customers. They usually just hear us talk about the dark web, and having some context of what it actually looks like, I think is fantastic. If anybody that's connected has any questions, put them in the chat for me. But Katie, I actually had a couple little examples we wanted to share. I think your comment about when people are susceptible, you told your story about being busy on a Saturday and then getting the attempted phishing, campaign. It's when people are busy, that's when they let their guard down, or if they're in a hurry and they're not paying attention. So some combination of being aware that I'm going to get tricked when I'm busy, and then that extra 20 seconds. I think that's a great, tip for everybody out there to pay attention to. Take the extra couple of seconds and think through. If you get that email at 4:55 on a Friday and you're trying to get out the door, and you might make a mistake because you're in a hurry or you're not paying enough attention, that's when we've seen people make those kind of mistakes. The other story I wanted to share, I had a prospective customer that I met with about a month ago that had a breach, and the way that this breach happened was they their CEO was on vacation, and in his calendar it showed that he was on vacation. His O365 account was compromised, and the bad guys knew that he was on vacation. And so while he was out on a beach, they started sending the emails to try to trick people. And they did something really clever, I thought. They sent an email to his executive assistant as well as one of their customers about a wire transfer. Long story short, they were able to trick the third party to wire money into a different location than what they had originally planned on. And they're still trying to unravel kind of the details of this. This prospect, they were embarrassed. They're a little concerned of a lawsuit because, they basically got two other parties to wire money in a direction that, was fraudulent, but they used it using a compromised email while he was on vacation, and he didn't even know it was happening until he came back days later and kind of unraveled what was going on. And, that story kind of has all of those elements. He fell for some phishing attempt at some point, and that's how his credentials were compromised. But him being busy and on vacation and other people not paying attention, there was a lot of people that could have stopped that problem. Like, the banker, the executive assistant, the customer on the other end, like, this doesn't sound right. Why would we change the wire transfer instructions? A lot of people could have taken the extra 20 seconds and probably prevented that from happening. But under the circumstances, they didn't. And so now they're kind of left with, a mess on their hands. At Straight Edge, we have a couple of things that we like to, educate our customers about and then help protect them. We have basically phish awareness campaigns that we like to run for our clients. So if you're on a managed services plan with Straight Edge, we're going to try to educate your staff on what those bad emails look like so that they can, quickly be identified and ignored and deleted, and educate your staff on what those might look like. And then second, there's technology out there that if you're not in this world all the time, you might not know about. And so we want to provide training as well. So we like to send out training emails to our customers, letting them know about changes and good, password hygiene and how to, keep your data shared securely and where you might store things and where you should not store things. So those are all things that we provide for our customers as part of our managed services plan. So if anybody's listening and wants to know more information about that, we'd love to work that out with you. Our company exists to try to make our customers, more efficient, more profitable, and eliminate some of the headaches that IT causes. And so you can see on the screen there's some other services that we have, but we're primarily there to help figure all of these things out for you so that you can focus on your business. And so, we're just very happy to have everybody, on the call today. If you'll go to the next slide, we do have two offices. We service the South Texas area. So we have an office in Corpus Christi and an office in San Antonio. There's all of my contact information there. Once the webinar's over, we'll take the recording and post it on some of our social media as well, so we can kind of continue to get the word out. But Katie, if you don't have anything else to add, I just want to thank you again for the time you spent with us today and helping us learn more and helping us be able to educate our clients, about what's out there, and what 2020 has done and changed around cybersecurity, and then what we need to be preparing for next year also.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I want to thank you guys for inviting me here today, especially during Cybersecurity Awareness Month, just to kind of bring light to all of these different challenges that businesses are facing. I'll kind of wrap it up on this note. You shared your story about your customer dealing with the phishing email that resulted in a wire transfer. Far too often that I get to hear about stories like that, especially with, chief financial officers or heads of human resources. They seem to be some of the most targeted folks in the company, and they hold the keys to some of your most sensitive data. So if you haven't partnered with a trusted advisor like what Douglas and his team offers, definitely just pick up the phone and talk to them. I think with the changing of infrastructures, data security is something that we totally need to be focused on. So certainly, again, I appreciate the time today, and I look forward to future webinars.
Yeah, you bet, Katie. Thanks a lot. You have a good rest of the day.